I remember myself since a child to dream and practice and discuss how I'm going to teach. I really enjoy teaching and I have a vision. My vision is that teaching is mentoring, and since I'm Greek and I have that very well engraved in my mind, I still remember what I was taught in my childhood. Pedagogos was a slave, and he was taking the child of the family every day into the agora and was teaching and mentoring and standing by the child and showing the child things around and opening windows in its mind. And at the end of the day in the agora, in the gymnasium, the pedagogos was bringing the child back home. And Alexander the Great said something very important. He said that my parents gave me life, but my teachers taught me how to live my life well. So being brought up in this classical environment in Greece and being educated there with the classical um, education alongside mathematical and science education, I believe that you cannot teach unless you make sure that your student is your core business. So learning is the core business of my job and my vision. And in order the learning to become useful, I forget my teaching. In order the learning to become useful for the learner, it has to be meaningful. The person has to make connections. It has to be interesting, otherwise it will be boring and the teacher will be switched off from the student's mind. And it has to be rewarding. The student needs to see a purpose of what he's in. We know that all this is learning, and the learning has to be visible. I was honored 3 years ago to uh, attend a training with Professor Hattie as half academic at the time myself, having researched 387 students and their parents. I was mesmerized by his huge research and his personality. When I saw the training, the beginning and introduction of his theories, I thought, oh yes, they will use maths to say me or to teach me how to teach. And I thought, I have to be sincere, that I was a little bit cautious. But then, this visible learning opened windows to my mind. Explained to me that I'm not using maths to learn how to teach. I'm just using maths to see how much are the teachers responsible for the students' learning and how much are the students learning. I can teach. I can preach all day in my classroom and my students may have learned nothing. And this is why it's important to have the ability to see what they're learning from my teaching and let them see how much they have improved every little day, either by doing or by attending stuff. So this is why I agree and I use clear learning utensils. This is why in the beginning of the lesson my students need to see their outcomes of the day, every day. Getting out of the class, they have to tell me, I've learned this. And in the beginning of that class, I have to tell them, you have to learn this by the end of the lesson. This is giving a purpose to the task, because every little task means that they build a little block in their learning. They need to have the success criteria incorporated. It can make the task so hard, really, really so hard that nobody can understand it. Do they learn? Is there any purpose for this task? And how can I assess what they have learned, what they haven't learned, what they need to learn to cover their blanks? So students need to know every little moment if they're on track. If they're teaching how to cook and they are tasting every time if the food is okay, has salt or not salt, how on earth I can wake up a mind with my maths or my psychology if I'm not teaching how they have learned or not learned something? If I don't make it spicy or salty to make the horse, as they say, thirsty, I'm not happy to bring the horse to the water. I need to make it thirsty, to make it run to the water. And this is the other thing I love to make the students aware. I love to make them, as Hattie says, assessment capable. Every time I need to make them aware of their assessment criteria in order to make them aware if they address this criteria by themselves so they can be self-monitoring their own progress. We know, of course, that if we do all this, we have an effect. Students learn by themselves because they grow, because their mind grows. Every year, every little year, they will learn something, something that gives them point 4, as Hattie says. Point 4 will happen with or without me because they're growing, because of their environment, because of their friends and their peers. Whatever is on top of that, it is the teacher's effect. And I am the one who makes a difference, or not. I'm the one who will take my student up or let my student fall down and be disengaged and lose their interest. And all these are happening, as we know by Hattie, through feedback. What kind of feedback, though? Is that the feedback that I need to have every 3 months, every month, or at the end of the month when they fail the test? No. I believe that the feedback has to be immediate, on the day, on the lesson, on the task. They don't get it right, why they don't get it right, how they will understand it. If I can't help them, if I cannot teach them one way, the person next to them can teach them. Learning is happening in groups. Nobody can learn by themselves because they're repeating the same mistakes again and again and again. So we're talking about immediate feedback, and I'm talking about Professor Dylan Williams' theory on immediate feedback and the importance of the formative immediate assessment. And this is what I'm practicing every day in my class. Be with games, be with funny way, be with online tools every day. Unless I know what my students learn, I cannot build new knowledge. And of course, once was Bloom's, and then it was Da Costa and his HOTS, but all of them nowadays, I think they are combined by Marzano and his framework of strategies and stages of teaching. It is very well used in the States now, parallel to Bloom's taxonomy. Criteria and stages are coming one way through Bloom's taxonomy and through stages and stages of teaching according to Marzano. I'm using them every day in the class. And this way, I know that I'm building a growth mindset for my student. Every day, every other day, I'm telling them, no, you're not made by nature knowing or not knowing maths. The same way somebody can mold a tree and make nice creations and sculptures of the tree, you can sculpture your mind and do whatever you want. So if I have a growth mindset for my students, I can persuade them that they have a growth mindset. If I have a fixed idea that they cannot learn, I'm not giving them this chance. And because I'm combining my maths with my psychology very well, I believe that Professor of Psychology, Carol Dweck, is doing the best thing at the moment, putting a framework on this psychology of success and the need of praising not for somebody being intelligent. Intelligence is not important anymore. Talking about multiple intelligence and skills in different levels. And all the knowledge being on our fingertips through the keyboard and online learning. Praising for the effort to find this knowledge is the most important thing. And if I'm praising somebody for their intelligence and they fail, what they get? They get the message that they're silly or not clever enough, and they quit. But if I praise somebody for the effort he puts in, then they will put more effort. It's like coaching your athlete, and this is mathletics or learning athletics. So if I have a growth mindset for my students, I have to develop a growth mindset on their strengths, not on something they're weak and they can see that they're failing and failing and failing. What's the point of throwing a student against the wall and against their inability to learn something? What's the point if I am making them feel small and inadequate? I'm not becoming bigger. I'm becoming even littler, smaller. So this positive psychology is my other post, my other hallmark. I support in my teaching Professor Seliman's positive psychology, and I'm focusing on my students' strengths. So focusing on my students' strengths and the belief that they are not there as yet, but they can grow and they can learn, and I will be the one who is doing that. Actually, I'm mentoring my students. And this brings me back to where I started. Teaching is mentoring. Teaching students how to learn, teaching student teachers how to become teachers. Teaching myself how to become every day a better teacher. There's art of teaching. Somebody may have natural this instinct, but somebody else can learn through the science. And the science is analyzing your data every time, reflecting on your practice. And this is mentorship, becoming a learner and a teacher. I'm learning from someone, I'm taking into consideration everything new I learn, since I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm transferring this learning to others. And all of this have to happen in a social environment. And emotional learning is the key word. I need to feel how they feel. I need to feel that my student feels belittled every time I'm putting them down in front of the others. I need to make sure that the social learning is happening in a classroom, be online or face-to-face class. It has to be social. It has to be a communication, an exchange of ideas. It is the modern online agora has been educated on. And of course, this is happening in the framework of the 21st century needs and the needs of the 21st century learner, who has to be a global citizen learner. And this is happening through online learning, where a student in Australia can open the windows of the Library of the Congress in the States or the Louvre Museum in France, and he can see what's happening there. Or can go on online through online learning and visit NASA. Or see what's happening on Mars through curiosity via NASA in an online environment. So I cannot be able to teach unless I'm engaged in this online environment. So all these are bringing back to I'm teaching, but they are learning. and they're learning because they want, because they are interested, because learning for them has become that thing that stops their thirst and gives a meaning to their life, and eventually it is student driven and student centered. This is my vision. How to become a better mentor for my students, a better mentor for my student teachers, a better colleague engaged in professional learning communities with my colleagues.